Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. This is Gemini Brett, the astronaut and storyteller. It's good to see you, and I'm very happy to be here to announce a TaUranus retreat around the Scorpio New Moon this year of 2019 in Mexico. So I'm just going to lay out the potential itinerary for this amazing happening of celebrating Uranus and Taurus and embodied astrology, where we will get into the nature of Uranus and the nativity, Uranus the Awakener. We'll talk some about trauma signatures and how to deal with that, and the improvisational force of Uranus, who, among many other gifts, helps us get into the moment now. We'll do some work with embodied astrology practices through sacred geometry, through harmony, to approach the incredible relationship truth of aspect theory of astrology. We'll do some embodied astronomy, getting out under the night sky. In fact, at this time, as it is true, for about 3 days every year, and this year is one of the best candidates possible because it happens during the Scorpio New Moon is opposite Uranus, so we will be able to see Uranus in the sky with our naked eye. So come to Mexico and get initiated, see Uranus in space with your face. We're going to go to San Miguel de Allende, a wonderful, beautiful city in Mexico, where I first visited in February last year to see my friend Eric Deutsch married. And Eric is a brilliant master pianist. So Eric will join in the festivities in Mexico City at my friend Ursula Stockter's school, where I'll do some teachings about astrology and sacred geometry. And Eric will play a concert, some live music, and we'll have an AstroDance on Venus's day to really celebrate the beautiful pathways of embodying astrology. We'll work through some philosophy and technique and invitation of art therapy for astrology, perhaps especially necessary during Uranus transits. And we'll have some pyramid tours. So there'll kind of be a couple of days before, if people want to come down early, where we'll get out to the Teotihuacan, the great pyramids of the sun and the moon of Quetzalcoatl, north of Mexico City. And we'll spend a day at the incredible National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City as well. A couple of days of teachings at Ursula's, and then a bus to San Miguel de Allende, where we will see another incredible pyramid site, a recently discovered pyramid site called Cañada de la Virgen near San Miguel de Allende, this beautiful city. And then that night we'll head out and be initiated to see Uranus in space with our face, and spend some telescope time with Ursula Stockter's brother-in-law, who's built an astro tower under dark skies. And at the time, we will be able to see sun, of course, and moon, days around the Scorpio New Moon. We will see her in her balsamic waning crescent, as well as in her new crescent phase during the celebration of Denali, right, the great Hindu celebration of this particular new moon. So we'll see sun and moon nothing too new there, but we'll see Mercury, and I know many of you astrologers have not. In fact, Mercury and Venus will be near conjunct during the time. I'll show you an image of that. We'll see Mars right around the time of heliacal rise, just coming back from underneath the sun's beams, kind of reborn in the morning sky. And then in the evening sky, we'll see this incredible Mercury-Venus conjunction in the sign of Scorpio. We will see Saturn in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Sagittarius and Saturn in Capricorn, right at the eye of the great cosmic serpent, which is the Milky Way. And we will see Uranus in the sky with our naked eye, and tends to have good weather around Mexico City and San Miguel at this time of the year in October, where you get about an 11.5-hour day. And I know for those of you who, like me, reside in the Northern Hemisphere, just at this time of the autumn, when our daylight's really starting to rapidly dwindle, it's a nice thing to get down into the tropics and lengthen the day. So sacred geometry for astrologers, musical harmony for astrologers, embodying astro art through painting and drawing and dance, live music and movement, embodied astronomy for astrologers, I think so important, especially in this time of Taurus, Uranus and Taurus. And much more, including pyramid visits, which will bring us into Mesoamerican calendar study and cosmology, night sky cosmology. And also we'll spend a day in San Miguel, our last day, getting around town, having a fun walking tour of this beautiful small city, and spend a good amount of time at this wonderful church there, which itself has been an incredible teacher for me in how to align a solar temple. All right, so there's going to be a lot happening. I'm going to show you a couple charts and show you also some sky stuff and a few other things. Let me just say, some of you are watching this on Facebook right now, some later on YouTube probably. If you're interested, leave a comment or send me a message. You can reach me at morethan.astrology@gmail.com. We're still just kind of putting together the itinerary, making sure that aligns. We have hotels picked out already. Oh, a very important thing I forgot to mention is that meals will be provided, and we're going to have a chocolate-focused feast. Like every part of the meal enriched with the great chocolate, for Ursula is a wonderful astrologer and an incredible artist, and not only with the paint, but also with food and with chocolate. She's a chocolatier, if you will. So chocolate meal probably means in Mexico like a very rich mole, you know what I mean? And this is a good thing. So let me share a few charts with you first. Here's the chart for today's announcement, 3:33 p.m. in San Anselmo, California. Venus has recently ingressed Cancer, and to join the moon in the last degrees of Cancer and the sun in the midst there with the north node. Of course, we just had this total solar eclipse in Cancer yesterday, so of course the moon and the sun are near a node there. And Venus's ingress Cancer reminds us of the importance of astro family. I'm really riding a high, having recently returned from the Great Lakes Astrology Conference, where it is so wonderful to connect with fellows of the starry cloth like you and me in person, where we can touch heart to heart. So I love Venus moving into Cancer as I announce this retreat that's soon coming. Venus will soon sextile Uranus and Taurus, and that's a really beautiful energy. It looks like Mercury's about to square Uranus, but that's not going to happen because, as we know, Mercury's about to station retrograde. So we're going to have to wait some time for Mercury to dip back into Cancer and hit direct, and we won't square Uranus for some time to come. I'll show you a few other charts. One is the Scorpio New Moon of 2019, which is October 27th, in San Miguel de Allende, where I hope you will be with me and with Ursula and with Eric. October 27th, 2019, 9:38 p.m. with the last degree of Gemini in the rise. And notice how this Scorpio New Moon, it's very close to my sun and also to Eric's sun, because I have my solar return on October 24th and he on the 26th. But for us all, this new moon will be opposite Uranus, you see. So when the sun is opposite Uranus every year, we have the opportunity to see Uranus in the sky with the naked eye, and this is going to be a powerful time to do so, most powerful time to do so. Why? Because it's a new moon, and that means dark skies, right? So as this new moon aligns, Uranus will slowly climb up towards the midheaven. Let's zoom ahead to that time. I guess I'll just go by hours here. Here's Uranus culminating sometime around 12:30 a.m., October 28th. And I'm going to show you a little bit of how that plays in the sky. I guess before I jump out of charts, I'll just also show you that Johann Sebastian Bach, let's do this, who will be one of the primary focuses in the Astro-Harmony teachings that I'll give, along with Eric at the piano, to help us hear things like aspects and experience them in our body. For example, square, trine, okay, tritone, or the opposition, T-square. See, astrology is the poetic breath of nature, and it's a wonderful thing to have these different practices like harmony and geometry and astronomy to bring them into the body. That's the principal point of this retreat. So we'll look at the itinerary and we'll see a couple of things that I forgot to mention, but dig how at the time, though Bach is no longer with us in body, this is a Uranus return for Johann Sebastian Bach, who had Uranus in the sign of Taurus at the time of his birth. By the way, maybe Leo was on the rise for Bach. We don't have his birth time. Bach also had a Mercury-Venus conjunction in the sign of Pisces, and there will be a Mercury-Venus conjunction in Scorpio at this time. Another chart that I've got up here is William Herschel. And the reason why is because, in modern times he discovered, or perhaps rediscovered, Uranus, right, with his sister Caroline Herschel. And you'll see that the nodes are aligned to Herschel's Saturn. Interesting, but also that means to Herschel's Uranus, which was in the sign of Capricorn at the time of his birth. And I love that the Mercury-Venus conjunction in Scorpio at the retreat will be very close to his own sun, for he was born on November 15th with the sun in Scorpio, and the new moon pretty close to Pluto, which is where the nodes and eclipses were around the time of his discovery of Uranus in March of 1781. All right, so let's get out of the charts and look at the sky. So this is October 27th, 2019. I have this cast for San Miguel de Allende, where we will be, and I hope you will be with us. And I've got it actually at 6 a.m. because this is Mars just returning from under the beams, right? So the next couple of days we're moving in, if people choose to stay later, into Dios de los Muertos, right? The Day of the Dead in Mexico, a huge holiday we call Halloween, up here All Saints Day. And Mars will just kind of be returning after the sun. Mars, now an evening star as I'm recording this, will be consumed by the beams of the sun, and then the sun will pass Mars by. And when Mars gets about 15, 17, 20 degrees from sun, or sun gets about that far from Mars, Mars is reborn as morning star, and that will be happening around this time. And for those of you who are brave enough to wake up early with me, we'll go out and see Mars in the pre-sunrise east. All right, well, in the west, after sunset, dig this. Let me rewind a little bit here. Mercury and Venus side by side, basically in the same altitude as the sky. Venus seems to be crossing the ecliptic at this time, which means she is very close to one of her own nodes, and Mercury, pretty extreme southern latitude for the trickster. This offers this arrangement at these latitudes in Mexico where they will be at the same altitude above the horizon. So that's going to be a wonderful thing to tune into. I know many of you have not seen Mercury with your eyes. It's a powerful initiation in and of itself. How many of us have seen Uranus? All right, so we'll see Jupiter here. Let me just move through time. in the sign of Sagittarius, which means have a pilgrimage. Saturn in Capricorn, which means tune into your roots. And let's keep moving through time. And we will see, I got to zoom out a little bit, Uranus, okay, culminating, sometime around 12:30 p.m. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit more, because that, in the tropics, considering that Uranus is in a northern sign, in this case Taurus, so for the northern hemisphere, and especially in tropical locations, that means Uranus is very high in the sky. I mean, we'll basically be lying on our backs, looking to the top of the sky and actually seeing Uranus with our eyes. And we'll have great telescopes there to enhance our opportunities also. This Z right here is the zenith, okay? So actually when I cast a chart for October 28th at 12:28 a.m. in San Miguel, let's go back into the charts and we'll look at that, because I want to show you something cool. So let's switch these and get into that Scorpio New Moon. Uranus culminates in opposition to the Sun. That won't fit on the chart. 12:28 a.m. I think we saw was a good time. Okay. This is Astro Gold software, by the way. And you can see this is right around the time that Uranus is culminating. I'll go back some minutes and we'll get Uranus right at the meridian midheaven. Looks like that happened somewhere around, well, around there. So let me cast a map for this. And I'm going to show this in local space lines first. Well, actually, I'll do astrocartography and we'll just show where Uranus is culminating. And so one of the answers, of course, is San Miguel de Allende, because we cast the chart to arrange for that, okay? San Miguel is up here, northwest of Mexico City. We'll be able to take a bus there from Mexico City after our days in the classroom and outside in the classroom and dancing and at the grand piano and such. This circle on the astrocartography map shows where Uranus is exactly at the zenith, okay? And by the way, just might as well teach a little bit while we're here. If you dig into the declinations of a planet, right? So like, for example, here you see Uranus at the declination of 12 degrees and 34 minutes north, okay? That means on that day, Uranus is going to culminate at the zenith, in other words, at the top of the sky, at latitudes on Earth of 12 degrees and 34 minutes north, okay? So we've got this cast for San Miguel, which is 21 degrees north, which isn't actually too far away. So here is San Miguel up here, and this is where Uranus will be exactly at the zenith. And that's why when we look at Stellarium software here, we see Uranus culminating, that means at the meridian midheaven, so close to the zenith directly overhead. I want to move through time here and show you a very interesting thing about tropics. Do you see this moment and how the ecliptic, that's this yellow curve, is actually intersecting the zenith? Between the tropics, whereas the rest of the northern hemisphere, the meridian midheaven is always due south, in the tropics, there's a little bit of time every day when the ecliptic moves to the northern side of the sky. So we're looking at one of them here. These are some of the things that I'll be teaching you, not only out under the sky, but also at this wonderful church in San Miguel de Allende, which is an incredible solar calendar. One of the wonderful devices that the church, which was modeled on a Spanish church, utilizes is zenith passage, which itself came into the cosmology in Mesoamerica. So next, let's go to the calendar here, and I'll just show you the potential itinerary. Basically, Wednesday, October 23rd and Thursday, the 24th will be like an add-on. If you want to come down early, on Wednesday, the 23rd, we'll go see the Great Pyramids of Teotihuacan. All right, we'll look at an image of the Teotihuacan Pyramids if you're not familiar with them in a bit. All right. Thursday, also kind of optional add-on before the amazing Anthropology Museum in Mexico City, where so many relics from many cultures around the country have been gathered in this museum, which basically has a room devoted to many different cultures. It's a powerful, amazing place. I mean, personally, I'd rather see these relics and artifacts where they initially were, but the benefit is they're gathered together in one place where we can see all of them and learn quickly, and that they're preserved in these places, right? So I'll spend a lot of time in the Maya room, I can guarantee that, but some of the great Olmec stone heads are there, and there's just incredible and important artifacts from many of the cultures, including that of the Teotihuacans and the people from Tenochtitlan, which was Mexico City before it was Mexico City. All right. So those are kind of optional add-on days. Come down, stay Tuesday night, the 22nd. So you can ride with us to the Teotihuacan Pyramids on Wednesday, or come down Wednesday night and join us for the Anthropology Museum, which will be kind of an all-day Thursday event with a wonderful lunch there at the museum. We'll probably do some sky gazing that night at Ursula's too, or perhaps at a park somewhere else in Mexico City. Obviously not great dark sky viewing in Mexico City, but we will certainly be able to connect with, Jupiter and Saturn and many of the powerful stars. The Astro teachings will begin on October 25th. By the way, I guess I'll just say this, you can celebrate my birthday with me if you'd like at the Anthropology Museum on the 24th. That being said, I'm kind of wondering if we should switch these things and go to the pyramid that day. Again, potential itinerary, but it's pretty solid. On Friday morning, I'll do some Marriage of Heaven and Earth StarryTelling with Eric Deutsch, my friend, master pianist at the Grand Piano at Ursula's school in Mexico City. And we'll talk a little bit about Uranus, kind of trauma signatures, and perhaps even get into the idea of the comet, which evidence has recently surfaced since Uranus ingressed Taurus last year, of the comet that likely wiped out Atlantis. All right, enough said for now. After a wonderful lunch, we'll have some art therapy from Ursula Stockter, an incredible painter, as well as an incredible astrologer and master chef and chocolatier. That afternoon, Friday the 25th, I'll teach sacred geometry for astrologers. I plan to have pads and compasses and rules for everybody's to draw along. We'll get into the glyphs in powerful ways. That night, Venus's day, we'll have live music from Eric and some friends and do some astro dancing. We'll probably turn the lights down and get down, all right? So it'll be night sky stuff happening whenever I'm around also. The next day, Saturday the 26th, also at Ursula's Astrology School in Mexico City, Uranus, Awakening, Trauma, and Improvisation, a class on Uranus by yours truly, and how we can help ourselves and clients who are dealing with Uranus transits, as I am now, when things seem to really get turned on their head. We'll spend some time working with the Tower card of the Rider-Waite deck as kind of maybe a spiritual technology to help us move through the times when the Great Awakener comes by to knock on our door. All right, that afternoon, Astro-Harmony with myself and with Eric Deutsch at the piano. And I love that Bach came in and that this is literally a Uranus, Taurus Uranus return for Johann Sebastian Bach, because I'll utilize a couple Bach compositions to show the great key of the music map for astrology, and how we're looking at the harmony utilized by the great composers, we can learn much more about the great mysteries of the heavens. All right, here's the TaUranus Chocolate Feast on Saturday evening. Everything somehow composed with chocolate involved, but that doesn't mean we're only going to eat sweets, right? So that's something you don't want to miss. Just show up for that. Right? That night, we'll have a star ceremony, and we'll do some night sky school in Ursula's place in Mexico City. And then we'll head off for dark skies. The next morning, we'll hop on a bus in Mexico City. It takes about 3 hours to get to San Miguel de Allende. We'll have a wonderful lunch there at a restaurant where a woman who did a lot of the archaeological work on the site that we'll visit after lunch, which is Cañada de la Virgen. I'm just speaking now with a wonderful tour guide whose name is Albert Coffey, who was first recommended to me by my first teacher, Daniel Gemario, who shares a fascination, as I do, not only for astrology, but for pyramid sites and stone circles and sites around the world. Cañada de la Virgen, I'll show you some images of here in a minute. It is a powerful and incredible Oltumi site. All right. That night is our Uranus initiation, where we will go out away from the much darker skies in San Miguel de Allende. It's a small kind of pueblo. Well, it's bigger than that. Anyway, it's much smaller than Mexico City, better be. But we're going to get out to this Astro Tower that Ursula's brother-in-law has built. He's going to bring some astronomy friends. The astrologers, they can get down if they'd like, but we'll go have a Scorpio New Moon ceremony. The new moon itself is about 9:30 p.m. And we'll tune into Taurus Uranus as well. So after sunset, we'll spend some time in drinking Mercury and Venus in the sky, and then Jupiter, and then Saturn, and then we'll turn our attention to Uranus. And I can't guarantee this because weather could do its thing, right? But I would like to guarantee that you will see Uranus with your naked eye, and we will have some very powerful telescopes. Ursula's brother-in-law takes incredible astro photos through giant telescopes and literally has built this Astro Tower. It's like a thing of my dreams. And it's kind of a fun thing also for us to climb after we've done some work around the tower card for Uranus transits in school the days before. And we'll look through some of these telescopes and see galaxies and nebula and much more, okay? All right, so the next day, kind of a walking tour through San Miguel de Allende, but a strong focus on this incredible church there for St. Michael. That was, again, designed after a church in Spain. And I'll basically utilize it after we've been initiated the day before at Canda de la Virgen and seeing some of the amazing techniques that the Mesoamerican cosmonauts use to align their temples to the heavenly happenings. We'll see maybe some, I'll just say, simpler solar techniques that were utilized often in the Catholic churches, and this church is perhaps the greatest example you can find. I'll say even more so because it's located in the tropics than the church in Spain for which it was modeled. And I'll show you basically what this church taught me about how you can then go home and create your own solar temple, even if it's just a stick in the ground. So we'll get to learn a lot, and especially after we've been through some of the sacred geometry initiations, you'll see how this church itself, as many do, and I think also very many ways unconsciously because they were built by initiates kind of undercover, shows things around the nature of sacred geometry and sacred sexuality and much more. So it'll be a pretty cool tour, and then we'll just walk around town. It's a great place, and you can do some shopping and that. It's a really lovely city. In fact, I would say if you're coming down, if you have some extra time, plan to stay a few more days in San Miguel de Allende. It's a very romantic and beautiful city. There's a lot of expats living there. All right, but for those of you who can't stay, that evening we'll have Temazcal Ceremony, which is like sweat lodge ceremony, optional, okay, but a very powerful thing. We will, in all retreats that I'm involved with, be getting deep into our own hearts and our own processes, and this is just a wonderful way to wrap it up and to kind of sweat some of our prayers out and realign and ground. Uranus and Taurus demands we be grounded so that we can be active and powerful and centered lightning rods, if you will, for the marriage of heaven and earth. That evening, more stargazing, and we'll really speak about some of the cosmology that we've witnessed throughout the week and some of the sacred sites like Teotihuacan and how those pyramids are aligned, and also at Canda de la Virgen, which is one of the most epic aligned pyramids that that could be possible. So I'm very much looking forward to showing you why and how. Well, I don't know about the how. So there's the potential itinerary. A big question, of course, is cost. Still putting that together. I need to sit with Ursula about meals and about hotels. We've got a place already reserved in San Miguel de Allende, and it looks like in Mexico City too. But if you're interested, and October and this week is open for you, I would love to hear a little bit about, hey, what can you afford? You know, and there's a chance that maybe you could just come for the part 2 and part 3, the teachings in Mexico City and the San Miguel de Allende, maybe just the latter, whatever, right? But we really want to make our prices fair and approachable. And of course, we're getting kind of close to that time. I'd prefer to announce retreats well before this, but it just, as Uranus does, kind of dropped in from the sky recently. And so far, there's been a good amount of interest. And it's going to be an opportunity for me to celebrate my solar return in style with Astro Family, and then also to teach some of my, well, I'll say what I feel to be some of the most important subjects that I can teach, which are the quadrivium, which are sacred geometry and sacred harmony and sacred astronomy for astrologers. All right, so a few more things, and these are all things you can investigate on your own. But one is the Teotihuacan Pyramid site, which is northwest of Mexico City. We'll also likely go into the old pyramid center of Mexico City, which is Tenochtitlan, and see the incredible sites there and the museum that's connected. But Teotihuacan will kind of be a day-long trip. So research Teotihuacan and see what's up. And I'll show you some of the alignments there to the solstices, as well as to the sacred count of 260 days, one of the primary Mesoamerican calendars. This is a bit on the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. It's huge. It's beautiful. This is the original sunstone from Tenochtitlan. There is just so much there. So get around that website. These Olmec heads, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're a lot bigger than us. All right. So this just powerful sites there. There's a recreation of Lord Pacal's tomb from the place that we now call Palenque. I spent a lot of time there. There's a lot of these stelae from Yaxchitlan, which are just incredible, like epic Maya work. So I'm excited to return this museum. I need to spend a week in every room there. Here's an image of Cañada de la Virgen, named, by the way, because they found a statue of the Virgin in the river nearby. Obviously, it was from a different time, but interesting. This site was recently discovered in the mid-90s. It wasn't opened for visitation until 2011, right? So you can't bring a backpack here because people have been taking out artifacts, which means, okay, no backpacks, but it also means that there are literally artifacts like still to be found around the site. It's that kind of fresh to have been recently resurfaced, right? You notice that it's a stepped pyramid. I don't know if I can get some other images here. It's just the principal complex. And I'll teach you all about this. And I know Albert Coffey, who's going to take us around, will be a great person to transmit they're just like epic alignment of this site. But basically the sun walks that pyramid up and down in 260 days, which is the sacred count. And it takes 52 days to kind of jump this gap. A lot of this side has now missing, but it used to be the same geometry as this side, and it takes 52 days from the sun to get there to there. And if you've studied your Mesoamerican calendars, you know 52 years is the calendar round, while 260 days is the sacred count. So the calendar round of 52 years is where that calendar, 260 days, in some places called the Tzolk'in, meshes with another calendar, which in those same places was called the Ha'ab, the annual count of 365 days. It's a really incredible site, and the genius of people to be able to align pyramids in this way, it's like way too far out. We'll see some similar evidence at Teotihuacan. We'll see some Pleiadian alignment, solstice alignment, and also some alignment to the sacred count of days. These are some of my favorite things to teach. All right. So here's San Miguel de Allende. Really, really beautiful city. And this is this church of St. Michael, that is in of itself one of the coolest solar calendars, like solar astronomy trackers I've ever learned from personally. I was really excited to be down there for this wedding of my friend Eric Deutsch, who'll be playing some piano with us during this week. And I just spent hours out front of this church, and it educated me in very significant ways. So I look forward to sharing some of that with you. And then also just getting around San Miguel. It's a very, very beautiful town. Here we go, October. Record high, 98.6 Fahrenheit. That's not going to happen. The average is about 72. I've seen. It's really good weather at that time, and low precipitation as well. We're just coming out of the rainy season. So especially in late October, we're getting to a place where we're definitely more, we have more promise of clear skies for the astronomy happening, which is actually one of the many reasons why I chose Mexico for this happening. Here's a little bit about Diwali, which is the great festival of lights in Hindu cosmology. So read a bit about that too, because we'll bring that into our ceremony and our celebrations of this Scorpio New Moon. And here's a bit about Temazcal Ceremony, which is kind of the local version of Sweat Lodge. It's done a little bit differently than like a Nipi, than Sweat Lodge from the tribes here in Northern America. And Central America, it's more of a kind of permanent structure than a built one, usually of brick. Here's an image of a Temazcal. And there's one at the hotel where we'll be staying at San Miguel de Allende. So one of the last things that we'll do is kind of sweat it out, right? And get ourselves realigned to come back wherever we live, recentered, reconnected, and in a new way, serving as living vessels for the marriage of heaven and earth. May we always be vows for that sacred union. I hope this interests you. If you do, leave a comment, send me an email, morethan@gmail.com. You can also send a note to me through the contact page at GeminiBrett.com, Gemini Brett with 2 T's. And there at GeminiBrett.com, soon this will be shown in the events and offerings. And I'll be sending notes out to those of you who are on my mailing list. So if you're not, you can head over also to GeminiBrett.com and sign up for my list. I don't mail too often, but I do when it's important. And my friends, celebrating embodied astrology for Uranus's initiation in this great dancing sign of Taurus is one of those important happenings. So I look forward to spending some time in Mexico with you. I really hope you're interested. And again, you know, let me know what you can spend, because I'd love to bring that into consideration. I really want to make this available for as many people as possible. So we'll leave with a little bit more of the Bach that we came in. This is Hey Sue, Joy of a Man's Desiring. One of the mysteries we'll crack is whatever heck that note was. See you in space, friends. See you in Mexico.